I think I may have just figured out what causes the non-local holographic angular mutations. I didn't expect plasma to be involved, but I mean, if there is a non-local side effect to certain plasma effects by themselves, then, well, there wouldn't need to be a specific light source anywhere within plasma. It's just a side effect. So if up there is indeed sort of plasma in a way being charged, and I mean there is probably a charge up there, then that would literally explain how the celestial lights are actually manifested in their way, in the holographic sense. It's like the very first time I'm actually making a complete picture of this. This is fascinating and potentially testable for the first time.
Okay, still dead in here, huh?
No, I'm just typing. I mean, this is fascinating. I may have just figured out the cause of the non-local holographic angular manifestations. I think I might have even figured out what the mistake was. All these people that have have been trying to figure out what the celestials are and calling it plasma based. I think I understand why why they said that now. It's not because it is a plasma light, but it is because of a unique side effect of certain plasma. I mean, that must be it. That must be the reason why they would jump to plasma. But nobody ever really goes deep. Nobody goes into the details of why they're thinking it in the past, including Eric Dollard, who was like one of the people that says that that they're plasma based. He's been saying that for a long time too. So I'm just crunching up there right now. Putting puzzle pieces together.
Dude, that's awesome. And I was listening earlier, but I had to do something else for a minute. But I'm gonna go back and listen to the last few hours because yeah, that conversation you guys have been having has been on fire. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to hear all of it, but yeah, I'm gonna go back and listen because but yeah, man.
Right. It's been mostly like the last half hour or something. Before that, I started out the conversation with, "Did you know that chemtrails are white supremacist?"
Oh yeah, I did hear that. Yeah, and then I kind of was out throughout, but yeah, that was interesting.
I always like to play around with like the culture of the opponents and all that. like there's nothing more satisfying than using people that have declared themselves your opponent for whatever reason to like use the mind control that they wield for themselves to basically steer them without them really understanding even like what that means. That's always like, I don't know, great.
Yeah, it reminds me of Aikido, like the Aikido practices where you don't really strike, but you kind of absorb in a way that redirects their attack in a way that doesn't strike you, and you hurt that without hurting them as well, or just turns their energy back on themselves, the energy they're putting forth in a way that's like a spiritual reflection in a way back of that energy, instead of like striking back or
Neutralizing it.
just blocking.
It
Yeah, yeah,
neutralizes it
exactly.
like what is it? White noise cancellation effect, except with force instead of sound. So what they're doing is basically playing into like the field effect of forces themselves and how they influence the matter around. If you have a shock and you have a perfectly opposite counter shock in the same way, it cancels each other out, but in a way that doesn't like create friction or like would shock waves or anything. So it's like canceling it out. Fascinating. Aikido, you said?
Yeah, and then does that play into the constructive and deconstructive patterns as well? And in terms of those two polarities, the constructive
Well,
and deconstructive
another way
wave
would
patterns.
another way of saying it would be like it's like cymatic cancellation.
Yeah, which makes me think of what eclipses are. That just made me think of eclipses.
Yes.
It's
Uh,
like
wouldn't
a
it be
reset.
something if you're like creating a micro universe or like celestial system within a plasma thing that you're creating and then like studying it for a long time and then at some point suddenly one of the bigger apparent celestials starts to eclipse by another, right?
Yeah.
Or even better
Well, you're
that you're doing it and that there's an eclipse happening within that microcosmos within the plasma while outside there is also an eclipse happening simultaneously because I mean it's like a holographic field, so it's created in the same way it should behave exactly the same. What do you think about that?
yeah.
Yeah,
Lightwater, were you trying to get in?
yeah, to me it sounded a bit like scalar waves. Two waves who are cancelling each other but still create a vector. So it's called a scalar wave, but it's not modulating anymore. But it still has a vector.
Yeah, scalar waves are interesting. I've had you can get a little device that actually like plugs into the headphone jack and into like something to where then you have this little like copper disc, and whatever audio you play through it, it actually emits it in scalar waves. So you don't hear it really, but it's actually emitting it through the copper. It's on like the end of a wire. You have this little copper thing that actually spreads it. So like the idea is that you can like play certain frequencies or tones, audio, but it's running through the actual little scalar wave generator, which you then can just like place on your body or near your different places on your body, and then basically you get like that audio or that frequency or whatever the audio is like through the scalar wave, which claims that it goes through like the body. Basically, it's like it almost like penetrates and like is able to move through the whole system. And then there's an idea within like energy medicine of using that, for certain purposes. Or like if you have like even like a positive affirmation like recorded over and over, you can then play it through scalar waves and then just put it near your body, and it's just like is actually emanating your cells of what the actual affirmation is, for example. That's another way. Or like frequencies and things like that. Yeah, it's scalar waves are interesting. yeah, Arwijn, it makes a lot of sense that the sky would be something more than just. So, like in their model, they're in the glow model, they're going to say they're like, burning balls of gas light years away. So they have that whole thing. And I guess if someone wants to believe that as being reality, they could. But even if you come from a perspective that whatever they are, they're closer, and then what are they? What I'm saying is that really either way, well, like if you have just a planar surface and you have the sky above within a relatively local, I mean, we know we can't see Polaris when you get south of the equator, so whatever that distance is about what we can see of the sky. So, but my kind of point in just linking it back is that like with a stationary planar Earth, anything above that, in terms of like like some level of intelligence behind this whole realm, would it really just be so simple as to say, yeah, we'll just throw these like light bulbs up there, just little things, and then that's it, or like the sun? Or is there something much deeper going on in terms of what you're talking about, and like the different nature of light and what they actually are? In terms of that, or are they just like physical bulbs up there? Because there are issues with the idea that they're physical bulbs up there, in certain ways, and the way that it's all viewed. And it even plays into their globe model and why their globe model sort of overlaps in some ways or whatever. But yeah, so I mean, the true nature of what they are is incredibly like fascinating. And over a planar surface, like I said, I think a more nuanced and complex understanding, more than just literally lights that are up there, just glowing things, like you would in a room, in a house. You might just have some lights on your ceiling. Seems like there's something more going on with how these function.
Yeah. To me, our senses are very clear in what they sense, but there's, as I say it jokingly, my nose knows more than it smells. So I think my nose senses much more than it let me know directly.
Right. So yeah, thus far the conclusion has been with this new plasma side effect. It's actually something that I suspected before, but now it's like the first time I'm actually getting a concrete lead here in the physical world. It could be that what we're seeing up there is simply like a holographic natural side effect to a certain like magnetized plasma that would universally happen anywhere. So you could then create a miniature of it and basically have the same celestial effects that would even logically synchronize up with what's out there. So you literally like a miniature simulation, but if it's a direct side effect of a plasma, then you could create the whole holographic effect of the celestial sphere naturally, and it would resemble exactly what's out there visible. I mean, that would be a pretty mind-blowing discovery. And then we could definitely conclude that up there is a pretty vast amount of plasma to yield this kind of large-scale visual effect. So, yeah, the upper regions could be plasma. Right? And that plasma would not have physical lights in it, but because it's there, it would create the holographic effect of the celestial lights. See? Still there, Gio?
I am, but I'm driving, but I think my connection might go out in a sec. So I was just yeah, it might go out in a second. So I'm just not. I'll be able to respond in like 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah. If you can hear me, yeah, I just know my connection. I'm just driving, and I know it usually cuts out right here. But yeah, like I said, I'll be back. I'll be able to jump back on in just like a few minutes.
All right, no problem.
Shit.
That is incredibly fascinating. Well, so like any one part of it would replicate the whole thing.
Right. It's like, well, like a holographic imprint as a side effect. I mean, this is like the first model even where I'm getting a lead, and it makes a whole lot of sense. Like, and also the funny thing is that as a whole, it still doesn't help you tell the exact orientation of the realm itself. Because it's a holographic side effect, it wouldn't reveal anything about the physical orientation of the realm in a direct sense, because it's a holographic side effect.
Wouldn't it though?
No.
I
It would
that-
just always
that-
create a celestial sphere, no matter what.
it would always just create a celestial sphere. Now I switched to a different device. Hopefully you can hear me good now. But yeah, so so anywhere you are, it creates a celestial sphere as around you. You're saying?
Yeah. So, like, let's just say I'm gonna go as far as to let's just say you're having a glass ball that's filled with the plasma and magnetized in the proper way to create the celestial sphere effect. Well, if you look at it top down, you're probably not going to see anything. But if you hold it up above you at an angle, it might look like you're looking through a window to the outside. If you get up close, you could like see like half the sky in it, like the stars and everything, whatever is supposed to be out there. Or depending on how the effect is manifested, if it's in the smaller scale, you would see like a miniature, like you're looking at it, but it's really small in scale, more close and more tiny looking, right?
So do
But
you
the
think we're
angle,
seeing
the angle of view in relation to it would be critical for when it's going to manifest. And anywhere below eye level, you just wouldn't see any kind of stars or lights or anything.
And would that have to do with the limit to how far we can see, or how far the environment allows us to, or both?
No, you just have to be able to gaze directly upon the plasma in order to see the holographic effect. And it has to be at that right angle. Because if you're looking downward, you don't see any stars ever, no matter where you are. And the same would be with any sphere that contains the plasma that you're looking upon.
So how does it create this like 180-degree hemisphere effect? And then with that, like, is each one of these, like where I am, where you are, where we all are, we're all seeing a slightly different portion of the sky. The second part of it is like, are we seeing like a fractal holographic portion of the actual entire thing, and we're seeing one portion of it? That and then also like how do you think like the 180-degree hemispherical kind of fits in with all of that, the way we see?
Well, the celestial sphere itself would literally be a total hologram, a holographic effect that will just appear the way it does. And why it does it like that, I mean, then you have to go into like subplasma and like figure out why that effect happens. Okay, good luck. I mean, you might be able to figure out. That could get scary because then scientists might get in their head, oh, let's try this out on the plasma up there and see if we can change the way it looks, right? Don't know if you really want to go there, but I'm assuming you can't really change much about the effect, and it just happens in the plasma. You just have to be able to gaze directly upon it, and logically looking up in the sky, you have a direct line sight to it. And as long as that happens, the celestial lights will manifest. To the observer, at least.
Yeah, and then they seem to be moving in a larger cycle as well, because they're also obviously moving, and then we're seeing a portion of that. So there's also that layer going on and there's a pretty consistent motion too. So that plasma would have to, do you think it's like in a fluid and it's in motion in that way? Some kind of like a frictionless fluid?
No, I don't
Possibly,
think it's
or
emotion, no. But it depends. It depends on what will cause the effect. I mean, if the plasma
because if you
needs
stand
if
still,
the
the sky
plasma needs to
moves.
flow within the device that you're going to try to create these micro celestials with, generate the same effect, well, then that's probably the way it's working up there as well. Right? But I think it's just stationary. I don't think it has to move.
Well, it's stationary, but okay, then how are the lights moving then? Like,
Naturally,
it,
they would just do that. It's not an effect of the plasma. It's a hologram side effect of the plasma that will just manifest, and guess what? We don't know why. But at least it could be established what is causing it, right?
and is it in it's in a vortex pattern?
Apparently so.
Yeah. Which
An apparent
correlates with
light
so many
ball
things in
that's
nature.
around you. And
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? If you create the effect, you would even have like frickin' daylight that comes out of it downward. I mean, that would be weird.
Well, what do you think the blue is? The blue sky versus the sun? Those difference in the lights or those layers? Because the blue seems to follow the sun pretty consistently. And then there's a thing they call a terminator line, which of course would happen in any way if you have a local light source or
But it
somewhat
might
local.
be part of it. It might be part of the plasma side effect. Like the blue sky may also be part of the holographic light, the way it works. Like, who knows? The whole thing is gonna be plasma up there anyway, in order for you to see anything. With celestial lights in it, that is. But I mean, other people say it's sort of like a blue ice that may be up there. Like where. What did they say it was? Like oxygen that's basically like crystalline frozen oxygen. It's really weird. And it is blue too. And that is actually what happens when you go too far up or too far out, supposedly at barrier sites that also exist. There might be a barrier somewhere where it's like literally you can't go any further. There's no space to go, and it's just everything gets frozen, and you run out of frozen water and run into like the frozen oxygen ice that really quickly regrows. Like when you dig through there, it fills back up in like a month. Like the hole was never there. That's kind of like the stories that I'm hearing about that. Right? So that may also play a part in the blue. But who knows, man? It's just like why the sky is blue is to me is like that's just outside of trying to figure out how the celestial lights work. But it could be a part of it too. I mean, it could be. Right? Maybe in a way you could also regard the blue daylight as call that as like a giant celestial outer skin of the sun that moves across the apparent celestial sphere. But it's the sun itself that is really bright at the center of it, but that it is like a big blue circle that that is moving across the entire celestial sphere. So it could be a part of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, you're saying like an actual blue circle of its own nature that seems to be synced up with the sun in a way that because and then do you think the blue is like closer than the black? Or like is the blue like a polarization sort of filter between the black which is either further or do you think it's all like similar distance?
No, there's no actual distance. If it's part of the celestials, it doesn't have actual distance. It's just a really dim celestial that's really fast and centered around the sun.
Yeah, I just thought I hear you. But I mean, there's some altitude that you think it just shifts to the celestials, and then beyond that is just there's no way to measure distance between them. Is that what you're saying? Like between the different ones, there's only a way to know the limit of well, whatever the limit is. You think physically?
It's kind
Like
of
what?
interesting now that you're mentioning it. Look, if you go up there, you don't see any more stars. Well, then that explains why even in broad daylight, above you becomes black instead of blue. Because if the blue in itself is one giant celestial, then it explains why you wouldn't see that either. Even though normally during the day you see it continuously. I've never even thought of it like that before. Right? If the stars dim during the night when you go up there, then why wouldn't the blue daylight celestial also dim during the daylight when you're up there?
Well, yeah, because if you know, even if it's broad daylight, when you go to high altitude, the blue disappears from the camera that's at the high altitude. You
Right, but
know, like
that's what I'm saying. Above you, it disappears, just like the
you're
stars would
saying,
disappear when you do it at night.
yeah, exactly. I know they call that what Olber's paradox is partly what they kind of claim with that. You know, they try to claim. Well, that's the Olber's paradox is kind of related to this in a way, but that is more of like a heliocentric thing. But it is how they try to explain part. You know, this is one of the things it tries to explain. But yeah, so the blue disappears when you go high, and the stars disappear. You're saying, or that seems to be
Yeah, that's what they say.
the
And the
sun
moon grows
maintains the
smaller and the
moon.
sun grows smaller. Everything just becomes, all the celestial lights become less. But if the blue itself is technically a giant celestial hologram, then it explains why it too disappears. And but you would still see how the light of it has lit up the world, and that's why below you still see blue. That's fascinating to think about.
That is wow, dude. Because you're saying with holographic images, like depending on the angle you're seeing it, like we were talking about the lenticular lenses too, but that but the way a hologram could work if you designed it where you could have what's that famous one like Kanye West was on stage or whatever it was that was in a hologram, but you could make it to where if you were to look at it from the side, it would just be invisible, but if you were to look at it from the front, you would see it. Kind of reminded me of that effect in a way. That's kind of more of a simplistic sense. But are you saying like a holographic effect in which,
Yeah.
depending on yeah, like your position to it, it either manifests or does not manifest, depending on your position?
It has a directional polarization, which is what causes that thing that you just described. It's all about polarization.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, man. That's really interesting to think about. Yeah, the nature of light, what is really going on? Because yeah, I mean, the globe model has their whole claim of it basically, and it's interesting how their thing overlaps in some ways, but there's a truth and a non-truth. So I mean, in my view, that not being the truth, it's really just not even worth really even pursuing that path in a way, in terms of what they're claiming with the light years and these other physics. And well, they don't even have answers either, like their whole dark matter stuff. So I
Dude,
mean, yeah,
it's
like
so tedious, man. I mean, it's whole held together by gravity, and they don't even know what it is. It's all based on the assumptions of the speed of light when they don't even have a speed of light,
yeah,
and and the speed of light is even based on the assumption that it is a wave, which has been used to categorize the spectrum of light as a wave because they don't know how, even though light is not a wave. I mean, talk about a gigantic cluster screw. Am I right?
yeah, yep, you are. That with those factors, yeah. Yeah, it's like with the speed of light, it's like they have a ping rate, but they don't really have what it's actually doing or if it's actually traveling in any way. And then they have a bunch of theories about photons and the different components that go into that. Um, and then yeah, the speed of light claims, and then yeah, but their physics can't even explain what we actually see in the sky. So it's interesting the people who kind of boast about that model, but really it's really just lacking in in multiple ways. So for them to even look down upon other ideas is also strange because they really don't have. Although there's a lot of bravado and there's a lot of money and there's a lot of hype and media and so they have that whole arm behind them. So I mean they can sell just about anything to people ultimately. But there are certain ways that it's been built into, like because you can go get a professional degree in astrophysics as it were. So yeah, it is still the fields of that, but yeah, I mean, they don't even have explanations as to how the things move. Now, even what we're talking about now, some or they may because yeah, they basically the mainstream kind of energy of it will generally reject anything that's alternative. Um, but from what we're talking about, it actually there probably could potentially be an entire way that the issues that they have that they create dark matter for, there actually could be real answers for that are not even down the path they're going on. Meaning they went there, they found, and then there was that issue and others too, that many others as well. But one of that, just that one in and of itself, and they'll just never solve it. But who knows what they'll try to keep kind of using in their media and stuff. But it's be really interesting to actually come up with an entire understanding that actually does, and just it would just supersede that
I mean,
in
I
its own
know,
way.
right? I think it is possible, though. It's not going to be easy for everybody to wrap their head around, especially because once you like grasp it, it makes everything else seem more false. Like you would realize how even more things than you realize were just wrong. You'll see it. You'll snap out of that matrix, and it'll be like a new layer of being a conspiracy theorist. Like you're a conspiracy theorist all over again. I mean, that's what I've kind of been experienced doing all this. Because I already kind of only hang around flat earthers and all that and people that are adjacent to that. But most of them sort of treat me like I'm crazy. And yeah, you've seen some of those people that come over here still to communicate that. But I mean, I think the closer you get to a complete model of reality, the more friction you're just going to get from people that are at their respective layers of understanding. and they're just not ready to let it go, to see the real thing.
Yeah, and it's like paradigms are like entire landscapes of consciousness, and so yeah, the mainstream paradigm as it were right now has its own entire kind of wave to it, and then yeah, the rejection of alternatives in a way. I mean, it's very kind of totalitarian, really, in its rollout in the modern era with the whole sort of Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan and all these guys that were involved in sort of shaping the modern era. But and J.P. Morgan being involved in establishing the Federal Reserve and all of that. So, that is now running the whole world financially. They took over the gold standard. But
Well, it's the leading story. It's history.
yeah, it's interesting how that system does have almost a cult-like energy of like anything that opposes it, they just reject, ridicule, all of it, in that way. So,
Right, even when it makes sense. And you even get people saying that, like, you know what, I'm listening, it makes a whole lot of sense, but I just can't do it. Might have heard that
well,
a couple times.
yep.
People could do that.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, I was using the idea like paradigms are like landscapes because there's like when you're in that landscape, it's like you can get really into it, and then shifting to another one for someone can be really. That's the thing, and it almost does take like a bit more of an outside of the box thinker, which pretty much everyone in that has made huge innovations have often done it that way, and not conforming and actually free thinking, and then you get the whole thing of paradigm shifts and and then how many people just follow, the follow folks, as it were, versus the ones that are actually innovating. And then, yeah, the ones that are innovating get the kind of clash back. I mean, astrologically, like Saturn and Uranus is connected to these two. Like Saturn is like the order, the structure, the status quo, more on the conservative side, etc. Whereas the principle of Uranus is the eclectic and the wild, the revolutionary, ingenious kind of energy, like in terms of that, and inventions and, the new and unexpected that kind of breaks the status quo. So it's like Saturn is the status quo, whereas Uranus is what breaks it up, which is why, like, in the 1960s, there was a Uranus-Pluto alignment through the whole 1960s, and Pluto, like, intensifies whatever it aligns with. And so it was intensifying Uranus, the principle of rebellion and revolution, all that stuff, all the riots that were going on in the mid-60s and the whole Vietnam War and all that stuff was totally characterized that. So that's Uranus in its more collective scale. But
Huh.
but yeah, so that polarity between them, the status quo and then the breaking up of the status quo for something new. I mean, the thing is though, dude, like even if we put if a whole understanding was put together, it still would probably take tremendous effort to even get it into the current, understanding, even the current, however, I think if it's meant to be, the resources will be there and funding to do what's needed when the time is right. So I really do think we could be living in a time where there will be an entirely huge paradigm shift. It may seem a little bit to some people's minds like dismal that that's going to happen right now in some way because of kind of how locked down in a way things are, but I think a lot can change.
I agree with you, Gio. You know, logic is always logic in a certain system of thinking. But if we don't fully understand the system fails. The logic fails. So in a time of big change, which we are encountering, we might not see what the change really is.
Yeah, I think it's going to take some time as well. Yeah, I'm talking like the next decade, basically, like the next 10 years. But
Well,
yeah, that's true too. That the change
I
does happen
think
slowly.
I think we are nearing what I would call the moment of the wink of an eye. In the wink of an eye, the change will be there. We are really nearing that. But
Yeah, I kind of feel that too. I mean, there's already some dramatic energy shifts going on, and that in its way has kind of like unleashed or released us of like the yoke that has been collectively put on everybody in the world for a while. And it is showing that there's a lot of like new levels of insight possibilities. I mean, I'm noticing it, but like other people too, like they're getting new depths of inspiration and all that. So I am kind of noticing that. It's like another leveling up.
yeah, and there's a lot of, may I call it, misprojection. We are very good at projecting.
Right, but I mean, if you don't understand yourself, you're going to end up projecting.
Yeah, and that's why we are now in a state of chaos, because we are coming to ourselves, remembering who we are. And that comes with a lot of well, let me say it. What I see is that the
Regret.
metaphysical and the physical are merging, and they are not the same. It brings a lot of confusion. But as of our one of the people who came on here said that unconditional love will bring order to chaos, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Order to chaos is not a wrong thing.
Chaos never existed. Chaos is simply the limitation of a person's perception or intellect or fatigue. Because there is no chaos. Everything has order. You just have to
Yeah,
be able to grasp it.
I
If
agree.
everybody's energy heightens, then they will automatically start to see the order that was always there, even though they thought it was chaos before.
I'll tell you what I see, Arwijn. It is, for the first time I saw it with Walter Russell, who spoke about the cycles of being male dominant or feminine dominant. And we're coming from a period of male dominant, and we are going to a period of feminine dominant. On the surface, you can
Oh, goody.
see it in a certain way, but Jesus, now I lost my train of thought. But in the judicial system, we are called a person. We have been living in the man age. Our inner male action figure has to take responsibility on its own. Now, the feminine source comes back, which is the bite out of the apple. So the apple gets whole again. The apple is the symbol of the torus field. So there was a certain part of information in the torus field that was missing. That's coming back and that's guiding you. Guiding you to find yourself and connect to yourself, which very much would look in our old system like narcissism. And that's what you all see around. People projecting all kinds of inner feminine or male aspects onto the physical. And but ultimately, this creation of from conditional love, which is literally the heart as a basket, to an open heart, the straw man really going up and down again instead of creating a basket for a pro fit, where you want society to fit to your desires, to be open to what it is. And that's a big step, man. That's a big step. Do I understand it really completely? No, but I'm following all the signs in it. So I'm speaking about it. Take from it what you can get from it. I'm now silencing the room.
Don't know where he's going.
What did you say, Arwijn?
I said I don't know where he's going.
It's going in all directions. All over the place.
Man, time is flying when you're having interesting conversations. But I better call it for the night.
All right, Arwijn. Yeah, yeah, man.
Or maybe not.
Cheers. That was definitely. Well, did you want to stay for one more minute? Because I had one more little quick thought that was actually just right on my
Oh
mind.
yeah, sure. It's just that I still have to like process this whole hologram plasma thing. Like just like my world's kind of shaken up right now. Because I've been waiting for something like that for like at least 6 years.
By the way, Arwijn, I'm 20 kilometers away from you.
Oh really?
Yeah, Amersfoort.
Oh. Yeah, I know Amersfoort.
Well, I was gonna. So, if we're on one part of the Earth and we see the sky, let's say at night or during the day, we see the different effects. What do you make of that? At any one time, the sun is at a certain angle, all the stars, but that they seem to move in a cyclical way that seems to imply that they're part of a larger cycle. The way they come through, our local area, implies that they're part of a larger cycle, and that when the sun leaves your area, that it is somewhere over there, wherever it is. So how does like the local area that we see and how it's manifesting? How does that relate to seeing like one portion of something larger? And do you see it that way? And if that's the case, are we then seeing like a fractal, like a holographic fractal portion of the actual whole, like a tapestry in that way though, where you're seeing like one portion of a larger tapestry, and then that whole tapestry is also moving, or it's also swirling or vortexing?
Well, you can't forget that it does seem to matter where you are on the flat plane in order for how the celestial sphere angles in relation and what kind of arc the sun is going to make and everything. So if you're going to create a miniature hologram like that, it should also be affected in the same way. And why would it even be? Well, it's probably like another polarization issue, that it's like all divided up in a certain, like, I don't even know where to go with this, man. This is just so over my head. Uh, but some kind of polarization effect, grid, that, like, where
Yeah, a
you
grid
are on
that
Earth
as you
influences
move.
it separately. Like, there's a separate influence based on the location within the realm space.
Yeah, like your latitude and longitude, basically.
Right. So a
Well, then,
separate effect that kind of determines how the holographic side effect of the celestial sphere is going to be angled, as it were. And that would then reflect in any kind of miniature situation you'd be creating with a simulation, right? But I mean, what exactly kind of polarized effect would it be, right?
well,
Maybe
when you're
there's
talking,
another way to shift. Like, you could like make it seem like you would be moving over the Earth without moving over the Earth, to influence the plasma. That you, if you could find the thing that actually causes that shift, perhaps.
yeah, well, and to add to that, let me post this in the chat real quick if you can see in the live stream one text. So that image right there, I know that's like a star thing and it's talking about 15 per hour. So I'm not really referring to that part of it. I'm just using it that it shows that kind of hemispherical 180-degree dome thing around the guy, which is what we see with like stellarium, planetariums, etc. All, that's why you create a planetarium. You can have a flat floor, and then you can have, the whole dome above you, as it were. But then this shows like it's kind of relating the idea. It has like these, like a plane of stars up at the top though. But I'm only using it just to kind of describe it more, like when you were saying that, what it made
Yeah,
me
yeah.
think of is like some kind of a planar actual medium that is a grid, a flat grid, just like the
Yeah,
ground is a
yeah,
flat
I
grid.
get it. Now
But
this,
within it, it's somehow manifest like that. The effect of it creates the actual hemispherical dome part, basically, in some
yeah,
relation.
but this is that's a good one. But this is a mistake, because this apparent flat star map that you could take parallel to the flat Earth, that's actually a mistake based upon the GP system, right? There's a flat map of the stars that has a direct GP correlation with the actual map. But that is not how the celestial sphere presents itself. Because then you would see a literal tapestry above you going into the distance and have the angular speed things and everything. But it doesn't happen like that. It doesn't go into the distance and the angular speed decreases of the star. Like, the stars don't decrease when they approach the horizon in angular speed, nor do they increase when they go away from it. It's all at an angular consistent speed. So the GP map would just make you think like, oh, they're just the GP points, right? And it's going into the distance. But it's not, though.
I do hear you. Although things do slow down when they get to the horizon. Like from like the 15 degrees per hour, like reduces, as it gets closer. But it, like they claim in the globe model that it's refraction, like down within 15 degrees,
It's
kind
a
of a
sudden
thing.
halt.
But it does slow when it gets like
But
I know what you mean. It
it's
is
a
pretty
sudden
much
halt,
even
though.
throughout it. So I do hear you on that. Like it doesn't really seem to work just like literally like a ceiling, like a planar ceiling, because things don't get like distorted, and there's obviously more than that going on. Just like a physical way, and I'm saying. But so things do generally move pretty evenly. But when it gets down towards the horizon, which would fit a plane, because like the 15 degrees on a plane would really only be right when it's above you, and as it gets closer to the horizon, that's going to reduce. So that is one argument that it's moving away from you on a plane. And then the globe people say that it's refraction, and it's also fairly minimal.
Yeah, but that's like a sudden line it's crossing. It's not a steady, like exponential speed decrease, angular speed decrease, which is exactly what is required for it to be due to perspective. Now, it is a kind of a refraction effect, and it's like a sudden halt to the angular speed, and then another consistent angular speed from that point on, up until disappearance. If it would be going into the horizon, it would exponentially decrease in angular speed as it approaches the horizon, because that's what happens with things that move away from you.
But what do you think about that? It's moving
it's
away on
another
such a
effect.
larger scale that it basically optically extincts before it would slow down even more. Like if it were, if you could see forever, that you're within a range of it still. What do you think about like the?
No, it doesn't really do that, because even with the stars in a really bright night, when they hit that horizon, they just blimp suddenly disappear.
Which is probably a few thousand miles. I mean, in general, I'm just saying a few right now because I mean, yeah.
What you are showing in this picture is for me the personal dome, and the personal dome, according to me, is created by water particles in the atmosphere, and at a certain distance, it becomes like a glass-like layer where things are projected on. And the lower you get, suddenly the density rises more, so it bends a little bit to the inside, if you understand. So it is a dome, but it near the horizon it bends a little bit more in because the density grows. So the start of the glass-like layer is more close.
Right, it is refraction. It is a sudden turn because of the layer angle that you're looking at, the angle towards the layering itself, even though it is a inhomogeneous mesh. But there is refraction happening, and it does seem to happen at that angle, and that's why it's noted as a consistent angle at that 15 degrees. But yeah, it's perspective doesn't apply, because if it was perspective, it would be an exponential towards the horizon angular speed change, and that's not what's happening. So it has to be exclusively an optics based effect that's causing it.
The personal dome is another creation than possible the dome that is a creation of the torus field.
Okay, well, the personal dome, that's like the line of sight, and that has to do with your resolution limit. After a certain point, like you just won't be able to see anything. Like even if there would be something enormous there, you just wouldn't see it because it's too far away. It's gonna be completely concealed by everything.
I'm not understanding what you're saying. As I said, I think the personal dome is created by at a certain distance the amount of water in the atmosphere creates a glass-like layer, which things are kind of projected on. Yeah.
That could be it, and it would explain why that apparent line of sight dome also increases dramatically when you go up, because there's obviously less humidity in the air up, so you would be able to see further.
Yeah.
And when you look down into that, it does kind of look more like you're looking into an aquarium more and more. So that makes perfect sense. It's an interesting way to describe it, that the moisture in the air would like have a glass-like layer effect. It's interesting.
Yeah, I started to see that because of the mirage effects that I see exist, thanks to the work of BLMB and Travis and some other persons.
Yeah.
So you think there's like a layer of water up there?
No, not up there, down here. There's a layer
There,
of water everywhere, but at a certain distance, the way that light kind of like scatters slightly, at some point the scattering, because of the moist it is in, will be so great that it will create a glass-like cut-off effect. And that prevents any sight from beyond that point. On top of the resolution limit you can
Wouldn't
have.
that just cause things to blur instead of disappearing?
At first, until the blurring is so great it's indistinguishable from the general nothing that is around it. Like, you're gonna have to overcome the resolution limit of the viewing medium, as well as contend with the gradual refraction effect of the moisture in the air, creating like a cutoff. Like, at some point it's gonna be too great to overcome.
Could I give you an example? Maybe you could explain it to me through the example.
Well, the best example I could give is like looking underwater. The cutoff point of your viewing limit, exactly in that fashion, is a lot shorter. You can see far underwater, even if it's clear, but you cannot even get close to seeing as far as you can above water in the air. It's the
So,
same effect, except in the air, it's a lot further away.
like, I had in mind the photo of Chicago on the other side of the lake, where you can just see like the tops of the tallest buildings, but you can see like a clear line where the water is, bisecting that building. Like, how would the water in the atmosphere cause that effect? Because it's like clearly you can actually see the building, like you see the top portion of the building fairly clearly, but you can't see the bottom.
Because it's collapsed. It's like mirage collapsed.
when you look at perspective, the double the view distance halves the size.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
when
uniform reduction in angular
yeah.
size.
And when you go into distance, it's the other way around. So there's
It folds into
there's water particles in the air. They have a certain size and they have a certain distance from each other.
Mhm.
And the farther it gets away, it halves.
Sure.
So the difference between the distance and the size becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And added to that, the amount of water particles between you and that distance grows. So it becomes,
Sure.
at a certain distance, it could become like a glass-like layer.
Yeah, but like the angular size isn't too small because you can obviously see the tops of the buildings. So like the bottom of the building, like whatever bottom half, or let's just say half, You
Yeah, but
can't see it at all. It appears to be underneath the water, below the surface of the water that you can see. You're saying that that's all just compressed. Like all you could hypothetically see the shore if you could zoom in enough. Is that what you're saying? But it's just too compressed.
well,
Yes,
well,
and it
well,
compresses by
that
folding it into the horizon.
yeah,
So the
exactly.
more zoomed out you are, the more things are folded into the horizon. That's why when you zoom in, it unfolds from the horizon. That's how you suddenly see the boat again after you zoom in.
Well, I've never seen a. You have a video of like you can actually see a boat on the horizon, and then you zoom in and you can see more of the boat. Is that what you're saying? Or a building, whatever.
No, rather, not being zoomed in, not seeing any boat at all, like not even a trace of it. And then you zoom
Sure.
in and then you see it completely.
Well, I mean, it could just be any. I've seen a good few of those videos, but as far as I tell, it's always just too small and angular size. It dissolves into the background, and as soon as you can actually like distinguish the pixels of the boat, you can take a screenshot of that and then watch it zoom in all the way, and it'll be the same angular size from when you were just able to resolve it to when you zoomed all the way in.
Well,
But
there
that
are
sounds like not what you're saying. Is that not what you're saying?
no. That there are examples of what Arwijn says, that you can't see a boat at all, and then you zoom in and it completely appears. So there are very
Sure, I
difficult
agree.
circumstances, and several people have shown that. BLMB has shown it, and Travis has shown it, and He's Comedy has shown it. So
Yeah, like I'm not
it,
disputing that that's a thing at
it,
all.
it's
Sure.
never enough to show one picture, because on the same position on another day that you can have a completely different result, what your
Right.
picture looks like of what the horizon, where the horizon, apparent horizon is, or
Right,
Yeah,
because it could be more
but like,
so.
moist in the air and then the cutoff point is going to be closer by. Also, compacting or cutting off the bottom part, all that, those are like part of a complicated array of different miraging effects, right? Which
The,
can be like
yeah,
drop down or squeezing or stretching out or displacing upward, all kinds of different effects that are like complicated and
the
kind of
yeah,
unpredictable what exactly will happen because it can vary wildly.
the
It's never
apparent,
just one way.
yeah, the apparent horizon can be much more closer by or farther away. The farther away is the black swan-like observations, and the closer by are the Lake Pontchartrain observations. There,
Right.
the horizon is apparently much closer by.
sure, but like the point I'm trying to get at, like what I'm hearing you describing is essentially like an eye chart where you get too far away, you can't resolve what it is, what the letters are. And obviously, you can zoom in to be able to actually see them. What I'm asking for is like, do you think that like you could go to the opposite side of Chicago? I think we would all agree if you don't see the buildings on the far side, you can't zoom it in. It'll bring the whole shoreline back in, right? Like you can't start bringing buildings back in that are seemingly behind the water there, right?
Yeah, but you are now projecting the end result as the beginning, but what Arwijn was saying was that in some circumstances you have, starting from an eye-like view or 50 millimeter like view and seeing nothing at the horizon, then zooming in, and then suddenly a boat appears.
That's just the Rayleigh criterion, though.
That's all what he was saying, that sometimes happens. But there are different situations where different things are happening because the atmospheric distortions happening.
Yeah, I don't think anybody disputes that. But like, how would you be able to confirm? Could you actually zoom in, like what I was talking about with Chicago? You see the top of that building. Could you actually zoom in at the very horizon line and make out the individual details of all those photons being compressed into that incredibly small line? Is that hypothetically possible?
The circumstances would have to be in a way where that the right as is display will show itself and might not be there. Right? Certain regions will always have the same type of miraging. And so there's a good chance, like, isn't that like around a desert? Well, then it's probably just going to look the same every time. You're not going to be able to zoom in and then suddenly see the bottom half of those buildings.
So no, the answer is no. Then you wouldn't be able to. How could you distinguish that what you're saying is what's happening? That everything's being compressed into a single line?
By moving towards it and then seeing
How
it
would that
uncompress.
How would that demonstrate it?
Well, you would see.
Well, I mean, presumably, because I've done this on a boat, you just start seeing more and more and more of those same buildings, which is not what you would expect on a globe, and I'm hearing that is what you would expect on a flat Earth as well. So it wouldn't really help us distinguish between the two, right?
What? What do you mean?
So if I am on the opposite side of the shore from Chicago, I can only see the very top of the tallest building. And I get in a boat, I start riding toward it. Or boating towards it, whatever boat people do, sail. You're going to slowly see.
Wait a minute, wait. So sorry. Did you do it yourself?
I'm saying I have done very similar things. Like there's a White House. I live on the bay. There's a lighthouse where you can't see it, and as you ride towards it, you start seeing it from top down, like as you're getting closer.
Let's just say there's a reason why lighthouses put the light at the top of the building.
For sure. But I'm trying to figure out like how to corroborate this compression idea and distinguish it from the idea that the globe model has, that it is actually an obstruction, a physical obstruction, that you can't see the bottom of the building.
Right,
So that seems
I
like
see what you mean.
far more parsimonious.
You want to understand the apparent curvature. Well, that's why it exactly happens like that. A way to explain it would be a diffraction effect, because you're looking past a flat plane. Looking past a flat plane is like looking through a slit, like light going through a slit. It's gonna influence it. There's a diffraction effect at every part going past a solid surface, as it were. That's gonna influence it. It's gonna make it deviate.
Sure, I agree. Refraction influences the path of light. Is that what you're saying?
Diffraction.
What's diffraction?
Diffraction is what happens when a light particle, assumed to be, it doesn't really matter, light in general goes past a surface.
Oh, you're
Pass
talking about
the solid.
diffraction.
Yeah, diffraction, diffraction. I thought it was
Yeah,
diffraction. Whatever.
maybe it is. We get what we're saying.
Right. Refraction is the bending through going through a medium that alters the angle. Diffraction is like more of a bending effect by passing by a solid surface that's not transparent. So it's a very different
Sure.
effect.
Well, maybe this will kind of clear it up. So if I'm standing on a little bit of a hill on the other side of uh, Detroit, I should have a straight line path to that object. That light should be coming direct. It has a straight line path, but obviously we both agree that refraction happens, and it doesn't actually go in a straight line necessarily. But why would it? The stuff that is coming from the lower down, you're saying that's actually being pulled to the ground before it can get to my eye, and that's why I don't see the bottom?
Yeah, because of diffraction. Right? When you look past the solid surface, it slightly bends the pathway right next to that solid surface you're looking past towards the solid surface. It bends it onto it, as it were, and that effectively cuts
Yep.
off a little bit of sight.
So would you agree that when photons hit an object, they reflect in all directions?
No, not necessarily. I mean,
Like I can shine a light, like a very focused beam of light on a piece of paper, and you could be standing 50 feet to the left of me. You can still see where that light is hitting that piece of paper, right?
yeah.
So obviously some of the photons that are hitting that piece of paper are bouncing and going into my eyeball so I can see the thing, right?
Yeah, it basically scatters in all available directions.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Light scatters in all directions. So, like, I kind of agree with you that the light that's hitting the bottom of the buildings, that could be refracted down actually into the ground and you would no longer see it. But if that was the case, the light that would have refracted and gone above your head would now be diffracting down into your eyes. Wouldn't that be the case?
Well, whatever doesn't get deflected downward because of diffraction, not refraction, would
Sure.
inevitably reach your eye in order for you to pick it up.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
No, it does because
Like,
you're
I
still
can't see
going
the
to be
bottom of the
seeing the top of
buildings,
the building. So you're
but
still
I can't
seeing
see the
the top of
bottom.
the building. Yeah, the bottom is diffracted. It's cut off. The amount of
Yeah,
distance
but
it had
there's
to transverse towards your eye over the flat plane led most of it to be basically trapped and bent downward so it never reaches you. And instead, you get to see the land sort of deflected upward, slanted upward in its stead.
okay.
Oof. Yeah, that's tough material. I mean, optics are like terrible. There's so much different stuff going on, and
So let me ask you something, Chris. Let's talk about optics and like photographs and how we see things. Like if you were standing and looking at railroad tracks, the railroad tracks would look like they rise to meet your eye level, right?
you mean towards the
Or
horizon?
they it appears like the railroad tracks, like as you're looking at them, they appear to like rise to meet your eye level, yeah?
If they're going away from you towards the horizon, yes.
Okay. So why doesn't it continue to do that forever? At what point does it stop doing that?
After the point where the diffraction limit of the amount of flat plane you're looking over is going to prevent the light from reaching your eye. So it's going to be at the diffraction limit.
Which is what?
I don't know. Depends on like the air content. If there's more moisture in the air, it will be closer. If there's more heat, if the surface you're looking over is heated, there will be like reflections and you will see even less of it. It will disappear into like a mirror even closer.
And it's just coincidence that like that horizon seems to coincide with all the calculations of a spherical Earth.
Yeah, it doesn't at all.
But it does.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, it doesn't agree with the spherical Earth when you don't account for any of the light bending whatsoever. But you already agree that light does bend. So
Under very specific circumstances, like when you look exactly past a flat plane, then the accumulation of drop or cutoff point, like it runs up linearly, which can only happen because you're looking past a flat plane. If it wasn't a perfect flat plane you're looking past, then the apparent cutoff would not build up linear over distance. Yeah, it would be
and I'm
exponential,
assuming
just like an exponential drop, right? Remember that phrase from the globe that
and
we
I,
never heard from
and
again?
I'm assuming you think that the sun and the moon, as they go like overhead, are coming closer to you, and then they go further away from you.
No, but I'm not going to be scattergunned. I mean, I literally just had a gigantic conversation of 2 hours explaining how I see the celestials, and you clearly were not there.
Probably not. So the sun isn't going further away from us
There is no
as it,
distance to the sun. It's a non-local hologram. They don't have actual positions.
the source of the hologram is moving away from us?
I wouldn't know, because you can't trace it.
What do you mean? We can predict where it will be based off of your location. We absolutely can.
Oh, the apparent thing that we see, the hologram, yeah. I mean, the angular consistency is perfect. Very consistent, but that has nothing to do with the source of it, because we don't know what the source of it is. It's a non-local hologram.
Now, do you
So
think it
you,
functions like a sphere? Does it does the sky? Would you relate the sky to a sphere in a way with the way that it works, Arwin?
The celestial hologram, right? The apparent celestial sphere that is above our eye line everywhere within the open sky. Yeah, that is literally a sphere that appears to surround us. But it's not surrounding us because we're on a sphere and it's around that sphere. It's because it's a hologram that surrounds us like a sphere no matter where we are, and it goes right through everything. As long as there's open space up until the cut-off point of sight, right? The line of sight, and that's where we see it.
So
In
that's how they've been able to pull that and make a celestial sphere that assumes to surround a globe Earth, and then put the globe as a little bulb inside of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They made it parallel.
so you think that
Yeah.
there's holograms being projected on some type of? Is the holograms being projected, or are they coming at like? Are they being
No,
projected from the ground up, or are they being
no,
projected from the sky down?
yes.
They're being projected from the sky down.
It is
And
visible in the sky only. Yeah, there's no celestial lights beneath us ever. No matter how high up
okay,
you
so
look, always up. That's where
Right, but
that is
I wasn't sure if you
hologram is
thought of it like where like the light's being cast from the Earth onto like a screen, or if, but you're saying that the light's being cast down on Earth, so there's all those. Is it
as a
like
hologram,
as a hologram?
a
So like
non-local.
the spaces in between the stars can be lit up. They're just not. So it's like a big screen, like
No,
because
no.
when you say
Every observer
hologram,
is going to have a unique celestial sight that is only in an apparent angular position in relation to that observer, exactly at the same position. Another person that's going to be further away is going to see something completely different, right?
Yeah, like every precise.
Angularly different at the same apparent type distances. But everybody only gets to see it as a hologram, as that apparent sphere that's surrounding you. Because none of those lights have actual positions in relation to anybody.
so everyone has their own personal hologram.
That's right.
How does that work?
Like I just described.
No, but like, how would everyone have their own personal hologram? Like that would mean
Yeah.
for every. That doesn't make sense. So like, I can understand like
It
one
does if
hologram
you're
being
looking up into a
projected.
giant. If you're
I
looking
could
into a
understand.
giant place of plasma that literally has the hologram side effect through however what it is, then yeah, it does make. Well, no, it doesn't. Still
Wait,
doesn't make sense, but it would at least explain how it's happening.
wait. You said a plasma causing a hologram side effect.
That's right.
So there is. So you do think stars are made of plasma and they exist somewhere?
No,
And what?
they're not made of plasma.
So
They're a hologram
what's the
side
source?
effect that happens inside of plasma. The plasma
Yeah.
does
So
not
where's
light
the
up. There is no local light. It's a hologram side effect. That
Well, I
seems
mean, if it's a side effect of the plasma and the hologram is light, how is that not the plasma causing the light?
oh, it's causing the light, all right, but it's not lighting up like a bulb in an actual position, though. It's just creating a hologram.
So this plasma does exist somewhere.
Well, if that is what causes the non-local manifestations of the celestials, then I would have to conclude that what we're looking up from the bottom here up there is probably a form of plasma. But that
Right.
plasma
I'm
is
just
not
saying. So
locally lighting up like a light bulb. It just has a hologram side effect.
yeah, I'm following.
All right.
Like plasma causes a side effect of lights, which I don't fully understand how that's not just the plasma calling lights, but whatever.
Because it's not a
But
side
this,
effect of
yeah,
light.
no,
It's a
like yeah, like
hologram of the
I can
celestials.
I can skip over that part. What I don't understand is where does this plasma exist?
Really high up. In a very cold region of up there.
Can we call that area space?
Or you could call it whatever you like, but it's a
Like, I
limited
mean,
area and it's going to be probably right next to a solid barrier or cutoff point.
You can call it space, but not outer space.
okay, if the Earth was
Call it a higher layer.
flat, right? So if the Earth was flat, calculate the heights of these things using trigonometry.
You can't do trigonometry on non-local holograms. You can only do trigonometry if you know an actual distance or an actual size of something. You have neither of that information, it will never apply. Just having an angle to something does not give you that data.
Yeah, you got to get an actual position in order to do trig. Like the globe can't even do trig. If you try to do trig on the globe, you debunk the globe instantly.
No.
Well,
Why
for
can't
example, you could do trig on Canigou or reciprocal zenith angles or a selenilian eclipse. Tons of stuff. Oil rigs, black swan oil rigs. Like I could. The list goes on and on.
so I'm not understanding why we can't get the heights of these objects.
Because they don't
You
have
have
any.
you have
They have no actual
two
position.
people
Something that doesn't have an actual position, you can't establish a point in space of. And
two
neither a size.
people on the flat ground with a known distance between them. They measure the angle to that object. You now have the base
No, but you
of
don't.
the base of a triangle and two of the angles.
Yeah, but this correlation is not causation. The GP point is where the angle is directly above you. That doesn't mean that you have an actual location.
Would you have a rough location? Would it be
No.
somewhat accurate?
No, you have the position where it's directly above you.
What?
That's
Well, no,
it.
it doesn't
You
have
have
to
the
be direct.
location on Earth where it's above you. That doesn't give you an actual position. It gives you an angular
not.
consistency.
I don't understand how it doesn't give you the height of the object.
Because the only way to
Dude,
attain
if we
that data is by presupposing that it has a fixed actual distance directly above you at the GP point. You'd have to decide upon the distance, which is not measuring it. You
if
can
we do
only
it to get the
presuppose
height,
it.
if we do it to get the height, it debunks the globe radius instantly. I told you, dude. Reciprocal zenith angles, selenilian eclipses, oil rigs, literally anything you could think of to look at in the distance will
I don't
debunk
know
the globe
why you're
radius.
talking about a globe right now. I'm talking about a flat Earth.
Well, I'm just saying, like it would debunk a globe radius.
I just
He is right.
no one's talking. No one's talking about the globe right now. I'm just talking about a flat Earth.
That's just a little factoid, It is true what he's saying. But I mean, like, you don't need the actual positions. You only need the angles and the GP points and the distance consistency between the GP points on the map. That's what you're going to be using. You're not going to apply trigonometry because you can't. You can't apply trigonometry to the celestial lights because they have
Why
no
not though?
positions. You have only
You said that
where it's angled above you, and it does not give
wouldn't
you an actual position.
wouldn't the side effect of the plasma being the light itself have the side effect of the plasma creates light at a particular location?
No, at a particular angle. Angular light manifest, right?
Okay, but so
Angular hologram.
the plasma exists somewhere out there. The fact that it exists creates a side effect that we see as light.
Yeah, when you look into the plasma,
Right.
you are subjected to the angular holographic manifestation that is visible within it.
Okay, so if the light gets created, isn't there a physical location where that light gets created?
Not in this particular instance,
Why not?
because it's non-local.
But I just don't understand.
Yeah,
You're saying that the
that's right.
plasma create has a side effect
Yeah, a
we call
hologram.
light,
It doesn't create light, it creates a hologram, not
which
light.
is light.
No, it isn't.
I'm not.
Not in this.
What?
It's
So what's
not
a
regular
So what's a
light. It's not
hologram?
light as we would create with technology. It's not a lamp.
Well,
It's not a flame.
so what do you mean by hologram then?
A non-light source-based form of light.
That we can see.
Yeah, a hologram. A non-light source-based form of light.
But like, isn't what we see light?
We see the angular manifestation of light.
So if it's something we see, how is it not light?
Well, it is light. It's just not a light source.
Yeah, the hologram isn't the light source. It's a side effect of the plasma, which is the source of the light. But the
Indirectly,
side
yeah.
effect of plasma, which hologram
Yeah,
is
that's right. The
light.
plasma
It
is a
is
source
light.
of a non-source based of light. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, make it really, really complicated now.
But the hologram itself is light.
It is light, but it's not a light source based form of light. And the source of the non-light source form of light is the plasma.
That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, that's gets difficult when you have to apply the same word in different contexts in the same sentence.
Well, yeah, when you say like a light is not a light, kind of gets confusing.
That's why I had to specify, get more specific, by saying it's a non-light source based form of
Light.
light.
A
Just to make
non-light.
you understand it's not emanating from a point specifically, like that we make here.
But so the light is created everywhere?
Sort of, yeah. It's simultaneous.
If the light's created everywhere, wouldn't the whole thing just be all white?
No, because you're only going to see the parts that are going to manifest to your position. Everybody gets to see the same pattern, but only from their vantage point. And so the same amount of holographic angular manifest light will manifest for everybody separately. They're not light sources that amount up with one another.
Hey, you know that Jesus picture where the eyeballs follow you?
No,
Yeah,
No, you never seen that one?
yeah.
no.
You ever see a little toy on a cereal box where you look at it one way and it's like a car, and then you look at it another way, it's like an android robot? Anything like that? Maybe on a baseball card?
Yeah, like a hologram, like the holographic image. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know how you look at that, right?
Okay.
So you're looking at that, right? And then you change your angle and you get a new picture. Right?
Right.
All right. What if the sky's like that where when you move, you just get a new angle on the picture, and everywhere you go is a different angle, and you're gonna get a different picture. It's fucking dope, bro.
Yeah, but the thing about that is the card itself is the source of the hologram, which is a physical source.
Yeah, and in this case, it's the plasma up there that
I'm
is
not
that
arguing
source.
that.
Right, but it's coming from like the card. Like you brought up the hologram with the card. That that light is coming from a physical location.
Yeah, I don't have anything to do with the other
Well,
part that he
technically,
was
it all
saying that
depends
has no
because
source or whatever. Like,
let me rebuttal that, and that is if that light is coming from the sun, then it's not coming from an actual location.
No, it's coming from the card. The hologram card is coming from the card.
Yeah, but if the sun that's
Yeah, it's
making
reflecting
you
the
see it
sunlight. It's
is
reflecting the
the source,
sunlight,
then
absolutely. But it doesn't necessarily have to be sunlight. Like you could be standing in like, a basement room with no windows and then use a flashlight. And then the card is reflecting the light off the flashlight. So I can get what you're saying with, you know, hologram looking at it different angles. You would see different things. It would be your own particular image. You can get with all that. The sky's moving, which is why, like, as time goes by, the hologram changes. Even though, like, I understand the logic of it. What I'm failing to see is it's coming from a physical source.
In some way, yeah, sure. I mean, there's energy manifesting. Energy has to come from somewhere, but it's not coming from a typical source point
But
because it's non-local. So it's manifesting somehow, but we can't really trace an actual position from where it's manifesting.
yeah, but the thing with, like,
Not
you know, the
visually.
baseball card, you put the baseball card on the ceiling. You have two people looking at it. If they measure the angle, they can get the height of the baseball card.
Yeah, but have you ever tried to trig? Bro, you're not ready to do trig with me right now, I'll tell you, because you're going to debunk the globe radius. But have you ever tried to
No one's
trig a
talking about the
reflection?
globe right now.
Have you ever tried to trig a
No
reflection
one.
on a mirror?
I don't
Okay,
understand why you want
hey,
to talk about the globe. No one's talking about the globe right now.
okay. Have you ever tried to trig a reflection on a mirror?
Have I ever tried to trig a reflection on a mirror? No.
Yeah.
No, I have not.
Oh, you should do that.
Why?
You should do that because you're not going to get the same. Like if you do it, and then if I'm standing next to you, we're not going to get the same position.
You wouldn't get the same position to the mirror?
You're not getting the position of the mirror. You got to trig something in the mirror, a reflection of something else. You're not trigging. You
Right,
can't
but
trig the mirror.
we're that's what we're triggering to. That's the whole point. We're triggering to the source that we both are seeing.
No, you can't. You can't trig the mirror. You can
We're
only
not
trig
trig.
something
We're
in the
not
mirror.
triggering. No, we're not triggering to the thing that's being reflected in the mirror. We're triggering to the mirror.
No, the only thing you can do is trig to the reflection with the thing in the mirror. Otherwise, what do you got? You don't have
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, that's my point. Where so, like, why can't you do the trig to the plasma causing the side effects of the holograms in the sky on the flat Earth?
Because if you
Because
do
we
it from
don't
the,
know the
if you do it
distance to
from
the
two different
plasma.
spots,
We don't know the
if you
distance to
do
the
it from,
plasma. Look, and the distance doesn't matter to the plasma because it doesn't change the thing that we are seeing and trying to establish the distance to, which is holographic and doesn't have an actual position. There's only an angular consistency that we can use called the GP to coordinate with. You can't actually know where it is because it doesn't have a location. Only the plasma in which it resides, which
Why
itself cannot see and cannot know really how far away that is. And it's
you're
not
not
really relevant
explaining why it
to
doesn't have a
holographic effect
location?
anyway,
You're not explaining why it doesn't have a location.
because all traces of location and just don't apply. They're not there. Perspective doesn't apply. Angular size never increases. Angular speed never alters in correlation to perspective. Any of that. There's no evidence of an actual location in any way.
Mm. How come we're able to do trigonometry to figure out the height of a building?
Because you can establish that it has an actual location and an actual size. And
Right.
you would have to know either one of those precise informations in order
No,
to
all you would
suggest.
need
but
to
it
know is
depends
the
on what the
distance.
building is.
All
No,
you
It
but you
need to
depends
have
on
to
know
what the
is
know how
building
big
is,
it
dude.
is,
If we
or
use
you
it,
have to know where it is.
you guys hear me?
yeah, we can hear
Depends on what the building is, dude. If you try to do an oil rig at the Black Swan site, you're not going to get the right number at all. You can't trig it.
What are you talking about?
If you use, instead of a building, you use the Black Swan, the oil rig at the Black Swan, you're not going to get the right number.
Are you telling me that the trigonometry for the oil rig on the Black Swan doesn't work on a flat Earth? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm telling you, it doesn't work for anything. It's moving around.
What?
It's moving, dude. One day
No.
it's this, one day it's that. Like, it's moving around, bro. It doesn't work for anything.
What are you talking about?
So then why are you bringing it up?
Because you're asking why we can't trig to the top of a building to see how high a building is.
We can trig to the top of a building.
Not if it's the oil rig at the Black Swan site.
Well, yeah.
Dude,
Why are you
what?
bringing up the oil rig? Like, why do you keep bringing up the oil rig? I don't understand.
Because what building are we going to use?
Because in
Are
the
we gonna
case
use-
of the oil rig, the distortion of the atmosphere is working.
No,
Which
he's
is-
saying because the oil rig is moving around, that's why you can't do it. It's going to be different every day.
Which a trick can't calculate, and geometry can't calculate. So you have to differentiate from it.
Arwijn, you agree with me? Like he brought up the oil rig, saying it doesn't matter if it's flat or if it's spherical. You can't do it because it's moving every day,
No,
right?
I don't know what the hell he was talking about. But I think he's trying to, I don't know, trick you to stop.
But we can, yeah, but we can do trig. Like if we know, like to the building, on the ground, we look at the angle towards the building, towards the top. We can figure out the height of the building, and we're seeing the source of that light of the top of the building meeting our eyes, or whatever we're using to calculate the angle. We can do this,
And that only
the
works.
the plasma causes a side effect, which we see as a hologram, which is light from a physical location, just like the hologram from the card. So why can't we do the trigonometry?
Because you're going to be measuring towards the image of the hologram, for example, the apparent image you're going to be seeing. Well, the apparent image doesn't have an actual location.
But how does it not have a location? That's what I don't understand.
Only the source of it, the apparent image you're looking at, that might seem to have a distance and it has depth and all that. Well, that's only apparent. You can only measure the distance towards the actual object that is causing the hologram.
Okay, so I would agree
if you're
that
only going to go by the apparent image, you're not going to be measuring the distance to the actual thing because you're focusing on the image.
That's why when we do this in reality, we get different heights from different locations. Is that because it's and that proves it's a hologram? Because let's just say
yes.
Let's just say we can't do it because we're getting different images. I mean, we can just do it on we can look at the same object on the ground, know the distance between the 2 points on the ground, calculate an angle. Whatever the two angles are and the distance on the ground will get us a height of a triangle. That's just a fact if the ground is flat. Whether or not that's an accurate measurement because you're measuring to a hologram is one thing. We would get a height, yes?
No. What you're doing is you're using the established angle over distance consistency to just know the distance based on the extrapolated standard distance of angle to the star in relation to the GP point. Because it's all been measured out, you know how much angle away is going to mean how much distance. But that information does not add up to actually looking at a thing in an actual position. You're not using that sort of information. You're only using an extrapolation from the angular consistency over distance.
You can't just jump from buildings to stars.
Yo, building squish. I've seen building squish in the distance. Shout out to Lemon Bird. He used to talk about the squishing, mushing thing that happens at the horizon. Russian vids or somebody posted a video of it. It was like a hotel,
I
and
don't understand why the. Oh,
obviously
sorry.
all the floors were the same. Obviously, all the floors in the hotel are the same size, but you could see that angularly. They didn't look like they were the same size. So I mean, you couldn't trick that. Like you just can't do it.
Yeah, I just don't understand why the principle of trigonometry doesn't still hold. You have a known
I
distance
literally
between
just told you why.
you have a
I
known
literally
distance
just told
between
you
2
why.
points. You have the angle to the object from the 2 points. You have the base of a triangle. You have 2 angles. I don't understand why you can't get the height. Whether or not
I
it's
just
accurate or
told you
not is
why,
one
dude.
thing.
I just told you why. You didn't hear anything I said about
But
the smushing?
you would still always get a number. You would still get a number.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be the right one.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
There are
So
there
yes,
are
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. You would
there
still get
there
a
are
number.
Jesus.
It wouldn't be the right number, but like how accurate would that number be?
How
There
do you
are
know?
there are examples of buildings at the horizon on a great distance where you can count the floors, but at the bottom they are squished. So
Squish them. I know.
so they are compressed.
I'm
But it
just saying
doesn't mean
It's all miraging effects. It's optics unique to the horizon, diffraction,
yeah,
refraction,
I
mirroring, all these things.
I can get with that. And like every single measurement has a margin of error. That's just like the reality of the world. Every single measurement has a margin of error. So we could still get measurements, we could still get calculations. Now we just got to figure out how accurate those calculations are, or why
Okay.
when we do it from different points on Earth, we get completely different distances or different heights. Like, what would cause that?
I don't know, but it's
Because,
happening. It's happening. So now what?
but that's the whole scientific method is you collect data and then you figure out what's causing this data to represent this way,
Okay.
right?
That's not scientific method. It's just data collection, trying to
Yes,
get it
that's part of the
straight.
Yeah, I
scientific
mean,
method
It's
is
obviously,
not
data
when it
part of
comes
the
to
collection.
cause and
scientific
effect,
method.
you would manipulate. Obviously, when it comes to cause and effect, you're going to want to, you know, manipulate your independent variable. So I don't know what you would do, but
I'm just saying, like, we can collect data like from certain locations on Earth. You guys seem to be able to trust like certain distances between 2 points by using Google Earth Maps. You know, I don't understand that, but I mean, you could start laying the groundwork for building a new flat Earth model. Wouldn't that be like a productive use of time, like creating a new model that incorporates the 24-hour sun in Antarctica and all that nonsense?
Already got one.
Oh, you do? Can I see it?
Yes, it's very nice.
Where is it? Do you have like a website or something like?
No, I talk about it. It's called rectangular looping with celestial apparent sphere.
I mean,
Does
I almost feel like it's got to be Pac-Man at this point, just because of the sun on an equinox. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? You're not turning left or right.
What? On this model of yours, does if you're in the what I would call the northern hemisphere, as you go north, you converge to a single point in this?
No,
No.
no, you could go
So there's
further north,
no
or you're going to bump into a barrier.
North Pole.
Well, there's a magnetic North Pole, and there is a celestial North Pole wall or line region, depending
There's
on
a
whether
north
there is more room further to the north.
there's a North Pole wall. Okay, that's new.
I call
That's
it the
new.
antiquator, right? You have the
Is it a
equator, and then you have in opposition to that, you have the antiquators. Antarctica and the North Pole region.
like so you think like there's more land in the center, which is the North Pole? Is the North Pole the center? Like, because you said this, it's magnetic. So how does that work?
No, magnetic North Pole is a point
Right.
that's
So like,
in the northern region.
yeah, if people were to follow like their compass and continue north, would they eventually bump into each other?
Nope, they would just end up at the magnetic North Pole.
Right. They would
But if
all
they
end up at
continue to
the
go celestial north, then eventually the magnetic compass will point south to get to the North Pole, while you're still going north, following the
okay.
North
So
Star.
all the people that are following the magnetic north would bump into each other,
Yeah.
and then all the people following magnetic south would eventually bump into each other.
No, because there's two magnetic South Poles.
There are. How's that work?
I don't know, there's two.
Well, how do you know that though?
Magnetic map. There's
There's
one next
two.
to Argentina, I think, or
Dude, the
Brazil,
magnetic
and there's one
declination
somewhere.
map was nuts.
There's somewhere next to Australia, I think it was, and one next to South America
You ever look at
somewhere.
a map?
So I've never seen a
You ever look
magnet that
at a map
doesn't
of
have two
magnetic
poles.
declination? You ever look at a
So
map that has magnetic declination on it?
yeah, I'm fine
That's
with
where I
that.
got it from.
There's still one pole though. So like, but
Not really.
I've never seen a magnet with only one pole. So doesn't every magnet have two poles to it?
Yeah, at least.
Okay, so if there's two magnetic south poles, wouldn't there be two magnetic north poles?
Not necessarily.
Uh, there would be.
What if there's only one
Unless
pole?
there isn't.
I'm sorry, Arwin, I didn't hear you. There are two magnetic north poles.
No, there's one
What if there's
magnetic
just like
North
one?
Pole.
I know, but
So
if you
What
got
if there's
one, so the North
if you
Pole, so like say you had the North Pole mad high, like at surface level somewhere, and then the South one is just way far down. You know what I'm saying? Like it goes down because you got to have two, right? So the North one will be on the top, and then the South one is just down low, underground far. Could be
what if you only got
miles,
one pole?
hundreds of miles.
I don't know. You get where I'm coming from? Like all you need is one. Like one positive sort, and then anything else becomes the negative. So it's only one. It can look like it's two. You could like philosophically arrange that there are two, but it actually only might be one. I'm not sure. I've never thought about this before.
I've just never seen a magnet without two poles.
Yeah, it's just because you using this like a nomenclature of like North Pole and South Pole. But if it's just positive and negative, and there is
Yeah,
only
I'm
positive,
fine with that.
then there is only the positive source. And two
Wait,
positive
so
can't come together because they're both emanating energy. So it's just going to look like that there's two. Like you could come up with a philosophical reason for why there's two, but you might also actually be able to just say, well, there is only one, and there is the
Have you ever
and
seen a
the other
magnet with
doesn't mean
only
two;
one?
it just means
Oh,
one.
have you ever seen a magnet with only a positive and not a negative, or only a negative without a positive?
Not really getting to the heart of what I'm talking about, but have I seen that?
Well, I
No.
don't
What
care.
I'm
I
talking
don't
about
care
is
if you
there's a
call
way of
it.
thinking about this as an outlay of a sort of just like to question the way that we arrange these ideas. You claim that there's two. I can come up with a reason why that there might actually be one, but it'll look like you can
Okay.
claim means you can claim that there's two though.
How? Yeah. Explain to me the one thing where it's like one negative and that's it, or one positive and that's it, and not a positive and a negative. Because I don't care if you call it like the positive north and the negative south, or the negative north and the positive south, or whatever. I don't care what label you call it. Just tell me where you've seen only one thing.
One thing. Not sure, man. It was just a quick. I was just jumping in here quickly because I was thinking about it. I didn't know if anyone else was sort of maybe had considered this or like at least prove it wrong. I guess the proposition would be that the two south poles seem to push off one another. So, but if it's just a directional flow of energy, it kind of starts making more sense that if it's just like a one-way, like a one-lane highway in one direction, there's no opposite direction coming back, right? If it's just one lane going in one direction, doesn't mean that there's necessarily two. It just means that there is a direction of flow.
I mean, I don't know. When I see a compass, there's one north and one south. They're
Sure, bro.
usually opposite each other.
The blue pole above and the red pole above and the blue pole below. Those are the real poles of the magnetic. And as Walter Russell states, God's magnetic is different from man's magnetic.
Nice talking to you guys. I've had my fill for the night.
All right, talk to you later. Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Yo, to want to do trig right now with you on your thing, but then if we try to do trig with them on their thing, they're like, no, it's not. That's not where it actually is. So it's like, what's the point?
The point, it was only ever an excuse to just make us stop talking.
Now, tell me if I'm wrong here. Like, are they just basically claiming that their right angle flat trig is applicable to the globe. So they're just basically like, essentially, if there were two schools of thought, globe versus flat Earth, and we're using our trig, they're basically saying, now, no, your trig is now our trig. Goodbye. Is that what's kind of going on?
Yeah, right? All they do is just say, oh, no, we are surrounded by celestial sphere, and the Earth is also a sphere, but I mean, it might not look like a sphere because of terrestrial refraction exclusively bending the visuals of the terrain up into a flat plane while leaving the celestial sphere that surrounds it alone.
No, what they're
And
doing
then they
is they
believe
want to
it.
come in. What they're doing is they want to come in and act like they can do this thing that they're asking us to do. This trig. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
of
they're acting
course.
like they got it, but they don't have it. They're bluffing. They're actually bluffing.
What else can they do? Right? Bluffing is all they got. I'm just glad I found a new community here that is actually sort of embracing my ideas for the first time and really exploring it. Cause I've been like rejected a lot over this rectangular looping stuff, especially when I was hanging around Nathan Oakley. Like nobody there wanted to have anything.
You're telling me QE didn't like your looping Pac-Man Earth?
No,
Come on, really?
no, I'd never even brought it up with him. But even the guys at FED, like
Yeah.
they didn't like it either. They thought it was ridiculous. Even though I had
I
a
mean,
lot of
dude, are
good
you going?
points that I was making.
Well, are you
Sorry.
going straight on the equator, or what's up? Are you turning
Should
left or
be.
right?
No, you should be going straight.
Like, as in not turning left or right. So yeah. So what are you doing there? Because it's gonna come back. You got to come back.
That's right. And technically, if you go fast enough, should probably be flying or floating. You could just like keep going at the same rate as the sun moves. Go in a straight line, have the sun be at exactly the same apparent angular position in relation to you, and just go in a straight line and then end up after a day exactly where you started. Having moved in a perfect straight line without the sun in relation to you changing an inch. Right, I think you'd have to go pretty damn fast for that. What was the equator length again? Oh yeah, 40,000. Yeah, you'd have to go 1,666 kilometers an hour for 24 hours straight.
No, more than that, bro. It's like 1,000 miles an hour.
1,666.
Oh, that might actually be right because it's phi. The rate, the way you break down kilometers to miles, it's the Fibonacci sequence, bro. It's very close. It's not exact, but it's very close. So if you said the shit is 8 kilometers, that's 5 miles. If you said 11 kilometers, it's 8 miles. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, technically, it's very specifically, what is it? 1,669.79 kilometers an hour.